Right now, I would like to greet everyone from St. Paul's Episcopal Cathedral and the San Diego Episcopal Diocese. So thank you for being here. Since we all live on sacred soil, let us acknowledge that we are meeting on the sacred soil of those who came before us, as well as their descendants. We are recording this session, so please turn off your camera if you don't want to be in the recording. Since we will not be recording in the breakout room, please consider turning on your camera while you're in that space. Let us begin in prayer. Oh God, you are the ground, the grounding which grounds us. Spirit, teach us, if we will only open our minds and hearts, that soil is holy, water is life-giving, the sky opens our imagination, our roots matter, our home is a divine place, and our lives are linked with our neighbors, all creatures great and small, and with those around the globe. May we work together to build your kingdom here on earth, knowing that this world, not heaven, is the sacred stage of our times. In the name of your Son, our brother Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Diane, before you start, I just would like to invite everybody to mute unless you're going to be speaking, because it provides a lot of feedback. So thank you.
Okay.
Phil?
Yeah, shall I launch? Okay.
Yes, please.
So I just wanted, Diane's kind of already welcomed everybody here, but I want to not reciprocate that, repeat that is good enough. We're very glad that you could make it. We hope that this is going to be a rewarding thing, that we'll all learn something. And in the sharing of the book and our insights into the book. And then my hope is always that in addition to learning something, we turn that new knowledge into action. Action is so important, especially with the climate crisis. So we will actually have an action piece, but that will be kind of sent to you afterwards. So more on that in just a bit. I'm going to introduce myself, and then Diane will introduce herself. So I'm an artist, and I also go to St. Paul's Cathedral in Bankers Hill, San Diego. That's my church. I am a founding member of Simpler Living, which is the creation care ministry of St. Paul's. And we've been in existence for about 11 years, something we're very proud of. And I'm also a longtime environmental activist. I do as much as I can. And I'll pass it on to Diane to introduce herself.
Sure, thanks, Phil. First, I'd like to thank Jen Zhao, one of our vergers extraordinaire at St. Paul's, who is helping with our Zoom tech. So thank you, Jen, for your work. She'll be with me at all the sessions. She and I will just take a kind of a step back role in the other 4 sessions that we'll have. As for me, while my weekday labor of love is caring part-time for my 5-year-old and 2-year-old grandchildren, I'm the current co-leader with Carolyn Leaf, who is here at this session, of St. Paul Cathedral's Simpler Living Committee. And I'm also a member of the San Diego Diocesan Creation Care Task Force, along with a few other folks who are here tonight as well. I've been a climate activist, activist since the early 1990s. Recently, I participated in, along with Phil Petrie, and the Raise the Alarm Nonviolent Civil Resistance Action with the San Diego 350 organization. And I regularly enjoy God's great creation while hiking with family and friends. So that's me.
Very good. Thank you, Diane. All right, so just a tiny bit about Jim Antol, the author of our book, Climate Church, Climate World. He is a minister in the United Church of Christ, sorry. And he is also the climate sort of spokesperson for the church currently. He's an environmental activist going back to the first Earth Day. So I think that's 1970, which beats me by a couple of years. And he was instrumental in putting forward, I believe, the first church proposal to divest from fossil fuels. This is 2013 for, again, the UCCs. He's been arrested multiple times in civil disobedience actions, including in front of the White House with Daryl Hannah and who's the guy head of Sierra Club, Michael Brune, and Bill McKibben, and a number of others. So anyway, he really kind of walks the walk. He's willing to put his body on the line and not just write books. Just a bit of introduction for this book study. So this is the first of 5 sessions, and each session will be led by different people. All right, so next week we have a different leader. We will do what we're going to do tonight. In just a second, we're going to get to discussing as a group, as the full group, the introduction and chapter 1. I will lead that part, and we'll take about 10 minutes for that, maybe get to a question, we'll see. There's quite a bit in that material, so I'm not sure if we'll get to the question or not. But and then we will have a breakout room session for another 10 minutes where, again, you'll have a specific question to answer and share some of your insights on that. And then I will turn it over to Diane, who will cover chapter 2 with the whole group, and then we will wrap up. So again, as you can see, we've got a fair amount to cover, as she already mentioned. Just a couple logistical things. I'll try not to repeat anything that hasn't been recovered. We are going to have people introduce themselves in the breakout rooms. So a lot of you already know each other, which is terrific. But you'll be able to at least introduce yourselves to the group of 4 that you're with in the breakouts. We just felt it would take too long to do it now, so we're not doing it now. You already know about the recording. So again, if you don't want to be recorded, you want to turn off your camera. If you need to change your name on the black screen there, if you turn it off, you can do that. But again, the breakouts will not be recorded. Do please mute unless you're want to speak. And then again, in terms of the group discussion, we're going to have 2 ways you can do it. One is just speak out. So that's just, first come, first serve, you might say. And then the other will be in the chat, putting something in the chat. But you don't need to put an asterisk in the chat to speak. You can just speak. And Diane will be monitoring the chat for me and vice versa. I would say, we all hear this, of course, whenever it's a group discussion, but we want to get everybody speaking as much as possible. So if you're one of the real talkers, talk first and then maybe step back and allow the quieter folks to step up. And quieter folks, please step up. And that's pretty much it for for our logistics. So I just wanted to sort of throw this open then in terms of discussing the key issues that he raises in the introduction and chapter 1. What do you think those are? What struck you as the really key issues? And feel free to kind of comment on maybe a train of thought that it led to for you, or whatever.
I'm Nina from St. Tim's, and I think reading the introduction explained exactly how I felt when our previous president withdrew from the Paris gathering, where the world was attempting to make a difference in our existing world and our future. And I was aghast that, again, we were taken out of focusing on that important point of what are we doing to our earth now, and what have we done in the past, but more importantly, what do we do in the future to ensure that the beautiful creation that God created is still around for our children and our grandchildren.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nina. Yeah, and kind of what a difference an election makes, right? I noticed that reading both of these things. History moves on, which is a good thing in this case. Other thoughts about key things that really struck you?
This is Willie from St. Timothy's also. Just very quickly, in regards what we're going through right now is a theological emergency. I love that. And certainly contrasted by the lack of desire on part of the church to change. So what we have is this very contrasted point of view that we have an emergency in front of us that we need to articulate, and yet we have to make aware the folks who don't want to be made aware of that emergency.
Well, and Willie, not to put you on the spot or someone else, does anybody want to try to flesh that out, what a theological emergency would be?
Well, I see it as trying to get people to become more aware of the larger picture of life rather than just redemption and a self-promoting piety that we seem to get lost in. And I think that religion, Christianity in particular, has the resources to embrace the larger picture, but also to embrace anyone who wants to join us without having to change them.
Thank you. Yes. Sam Herrick, you're muted.
I'm Marguerite Herrick from St. Timothy's, and in reading the introduction, it talked about churches kind of being complacent and kind of satisfied with the same routine of the way they go to church, and everything is scheduled and they keep at it. I was really impressed by the 350 bell ringers, or the 350 times that they wanted steeples to ring out the bells. And it got me to thinking that we always need to have this concern, this very important concern, in our face. And I love the idea that they were ringing the bell 350 times to make people conscious that it's here. And I think to turn us around and get us more conscientious about the problem is to have more advertisement. I mean, if it's a bell ringing or if it's a billboard, I don't know, I guess San Diego can't have billboards, but maybe on those traffic signs to say, this is your environment, change it or something. But I really got the feeling that, we need to keep it in people's faces to remind them of the importance of this. And I really like the bell ringing, quite frankly. But don't have any bells yet.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
I mentioned just quickly that there is a bell ring opportunity coming up, and we'll let you know more about that in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, just along with that, Marguerite, this is Carolyn Leaf from the
Hi,
Cathedral.
Carol. Yeah.
Hi, long time no see.
I know. It's good to see you.
Was it? He said that the steeple was a way of alarm, of notifying people of alarm. And I think we usually think of the steeple as calling us to church, into our own little, circle. But we want to widen our little circle, but it's not to go out, to broaden out. And I thought that was an important, I'm glad there's going to be a bell ringing thing, but I thought to me, oh yeah. Yeah, so we definitely need to let the alarm be known.
And Phil, Deb Sells wants to speak.
Wants to speak.
Hi, I'm Deb Sellis, and I'm from St. Margaret's in Palm Desert. The section in the introduction where he said that we need to recognize that we're all in this together. I kind of argued with that a little bit and struggled with it, because I think that the uber rich, or even the fairly rich, are able to insulate themselves. I mean, even to the point where the uber rich have created bunkers and stuff like that. And so I just want us to acknowledge that the recognition that we're all in this together is both truth and also is countercultural, because one of the privileges of wealth is the ability to build structures around to insulate people from, from devastation. So that's my only comment.
Gotcha. And I sort of read him to mean that we have to approach this problem together, right? That just as this is a problem, especially for those of us in the first world, that's caused by all of us, although yes, some of us use a lot more energy than others. You are totally right. By the same token, we will only solve it together. We need to somehow, which doesn't mean we have to wait till we get everybody on board, but it means that's what we aspire to. Other thoughts? Yeah, Robert.
What struck me more than anything else is I'm afraid I kept seeing the same old, same old. And my concern is that whether or not we as a church would really adopt green, as a major color in the scheme of things. And to me, it just seemed that a program, and I'll use that in a very generic sense, a program unto itself, as opposed to being integrated into the church itself, that this is another add-on. We've got groups for X, groups for Y, groups for Z. Instead of looking at green, instead of looking at this emergency, ecological emergency, as being part and parcel of who we are, as opposed to, okay, here's another group doing another thing in the Episcopal Church. And that's what struck me, and I hope that after chapter 1 and 2, I feel much more comfortable with what Antol is saying, because that's what struck me, that it's an add-on as opposed to integrated.
Well, and maybe maybe my answer to that, or a reference to that, a thought flowing out of that. There was that wonderful quote, and I was looking for it in my cheat sheet here, but of course you can never find things when you're looking for them. But the gist of it was that the one fellow, this is Speth, I believe, Speth, talking about, he used to think that this was a problem about species extinction and climate change and the eco crisis, and now he thinks it's a problem about greed and pride and whatever there was one more sort of key, almost the 7 deadly sins, right? So in that sense, maybe really the roots of this problem are fundamental and fundamentally religious and spiritual and ethical. So I don't know if that answers your reservations, but I guess we can kind of see. I know Erica wants to say something.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Erica Morgan, and I also belong to the cathedral. And I have a bunch of things, a bunch of reactions to this. One is that, elites, we are elites, everyone here. We are not in the third world. We are protected by where we live and who we are. So that piece already speaks to me. But the thing that I got out of, and I have to confess, I have not, I have ordered the book. It hasn't arrived. So I had to read it online at the Amazon site, where I saw the first introduction and preface, but didn't get all the way through the chapter. And what struck me was the amazing sense of fellowship that I felt, in that suddenly I didn't feel like a voice in the wilderness anymore. I have been working on these issues for a very long time, and I have felt like I was on my own. The way he describes what the UCC world has done, and the way he placed this mandate on clergy of all, denominations, of people of faith, I felt, oh, hooray. Let's get out there and do this together. So the permission for a sense of moral outrage about what hasn't happened was, like almost life-changing to me. It's like, suddenly we can be in this together. So then to the point about, is it just another add-on? I, as many of the cathedral people know, work on a solar energy project for the diocese, and lately have begun working with Deanne and her peace and justice colleagues as creation care is integrated into the peace and justice missions of the diocese. I feel like that is a beginning, a place, a way to integrate all these things together, because they are justice issues. We're back to that sense of moral outrage of what is happening, not just to the species everywhere, but to the people who depend on them. And I was just amazed that the UCCs are so out in front of this. That actually was a church that I was in until I was 12. And then the Pope has got it right. Come on, people, let's move here. I just was inspired by the introduction, so I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Maybe we'll just take one more, and then I'm going to ask a quick question, and then we should probably go into the breakouts, right, Diane? We're getting close.
Yeah, Phil, could you go to Susan Hayes? She had a question, and I thought we were going to move right along, and so this is the time. Thank you.
I was just going to say, I think it's interesting talking about sort of feeling like you're in separate silos. I think it's interesting that the racial justice issues have taken on climate effects in their sphere also. So it's interesting how some of these groups are going to come together, I think. You know, I mean, you talk about the sequestration of the well-to-do from some of the perils of climate change and ecological disaster. And certainly, you know, in terms of the people living in difficult areas all over, there's certainly generally the poor are living in the difficult areas, and the well-to-do are living up in much more comfortable areas. Sewage rarely spills in Rancho Santa Fe.
Yes, yes, no, that is absolutely right. And he does really touch on the whole environmental racial issue as well. Well, Diane, do we have time to, should we do the breakouts now, or do we have time to look at the second question briefly, or the first question really?
I think breakouts would be a good idea. So maybe Jenny, you could send us into our rooms.
But not yet, not yet. Let me just,
okay.
I need to get the quote into the thing, so let me do that.
Okay.
And very nice discussion, everybody. There's so much more, obviously, that could be said, but.
Unfortunately, we only get an hour to do it.
Right.
We need more time.
So I'm going to send to everybody, the question will be in the chat. So you should be able to read it when you're in your breakout rooms. And again, so there's 10 minutes and there should be 4 or 5 people in each room. And you'll see that I'll just read the question quickly, just so you know, we're on the same page. But share one behavior or activity. It's really a sharing, not a question. Share one behavior or activity of yours that is an example of your commitment to restore creation. And then if you have time, so if your group has time, if you have time, share one behavior or activity that you were inspired to undertake thanks to this conversation, or maybe any conversation you've had recently. Anyway, okay, so Jen, you can put us, or put the folks in the breakout rooms.
We thought we could summarize key points. If people want to share what their takeaways were from chapter 2, what are some of the key takeaways that you have made? And please either unmute yourself if you're going to speak, or let us know you would like to speak.
Can I speak?
Yes, you may.
There were so many things in this chapter, but the whole idea that we have everything we need on earth, I've always felt we did. All the answers to all the ills, it's here. We just have to work to find it and work together. It's all here. And the idea that this is heaven right here on earth. And we don't spend our whole lives working towards just that and not paying attention to what we're doing here, you know, especially environmentally. In the quote here, this world, not heaven, is the sacred stage of our times. I really like that. And the fact that when bad things happen, God cries with us and can't just step in and fix things like a magician. So many points in this chapter. Really liked it.
Thank you. Other thoughts?
I think talking about God calls us to communities, not just individuals. I think that's an important thing.
Yeah.
With that we work together.
We bring so many of our talents and abilities together. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Connie.
I love the story about the snow geese and how in their death they left a gift which later became known as a resource for solving the problem that caused their death. So it was a real coming around to a completion kind of story, even though there's still much to be done about it. It was a beautiful example.
Yeah, absolutely. Other thoughts?
Well, I was really distressed by that story because the problem is still there. There's still that big pit and there's still all this stuff, and it can even spread out farther. And why haven't we done anything? You know, it's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
As frustrating as that is, the thing that stuck with me is the single most important ingredient in social change is persistence. I think it's really still hard for people to change their ways, and it's going to take persistence. It's not going to be solved overnight.
Absolutely. Deb, would you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, a couple of things. In that section that asks the question, should we try to keep our hearts from breaking? You know, again, I think this is really countercultural. He says, when we allow ourselves to feel the pain, then we gain strength from knowing that we're not alone. And, you know, I think there is so much in our society, you know, and even in our churches sometimes about seeking comfort. So, you know, I thought that was an important statement. The thing that I'm not yet seeing, and being that I am leading the next session, I read ahead the next two chapters, is the difficulty of addressing the assumption. I don't know how true it is in other nations, but certainly here in America, that unbridled greed should never be questioned. You know, we should never question people's ability to you know, to amass more or do more, or just, you know, be that rugged individual. So that was a concern. The thing about the Berkeley pit, I went, and I was so disturbed by that I went to find out what the current situation is. And the current situation is that they are doing cleanup, and they are releasing, like, I don't know, millions of gallons of purified water a day by, you know, through the cleanup of that. So it's maybe not as bleak as it was presented. Obviously, it's still very dangerous and dangerous to wildlife and that kind of thing, but it is being cleaned up. So So those are my comments. So,
Thank you so much for doing that research. That's really good information to share. I'm going to put, oh, okay, let's take one more, and I'm going to put something in the chat that we can all respond to as well. Richard?
I was just going to say, I appreciate the update very much, and you're doing your research. I was very struck by that.
I'm that way, Richard.
Thank you for being that way.
Well, here's a question, kind of paraphrased from the book. If you take a second to think about sharing with a group an example of when you experienced heartbreak upon learning of one more situation of irreversible harm to God's creation done by humans, how did you move from the sadness, and how can we move forward in a positive way?
I was on a trip to Shanghai, and we realized after we left Shanghai that we had not heard any birds. And so in the city of Shanghai, there are literally no birds. And that left, I was with a group, and we all were just shocked by that. I mean, it just seemed like in this time in our world to have something like that happen was very shocking.
Yeah.
Very shocking.
It's hard to imagine no bird song.
Right, exactly. Yeah, none.
Other examples?
Well, the heartbreaking ongoing problem of garbage and sewage at our border, and why can't we, two countries, cooperate somehow and deal with that, and make people who are living in that area less ill. Well, that's heartbreaking to see that just continuing and not really being solved.
My heartbreak is when I see animals that are killed for trophies.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Amen.
I was in Michigan years ago, and there was a die-off of a fish called an alewife. And the beautiful beaches around Lake Michigan were covered with these piles of stinking dead fish that had apparently piggybacked along with some of these freighters that were coming up the St. Lawrence Seaway, bringing these fish from a totally other environment. And when they got to Lake Michigan, they were just dying off in huge amounts because it was the wrong environment for them. And then just rendering the beaches, just, you couldn't go.
When I hear,
No, go ahead. Lily, go ahead.
when I hear about how the Amazon is every day being destroyed, the trees are being cut down and leveled, equivalent to maybe a football stadium per minute, they estimated, in order to bring beef, more meat to the world. I find that as a crime against the world, because it took millions of years for those complicated systems, those bioregions to form, and the medicines that may still be present in them and the ingredients that we are just destroying is just a crime, just a crime.
So how do you move from the sadness? How can we move forward in a positive way?
Go ahead.
Yeah, speaking to Father Willie's comment, what concerns me, and I've had some experience with this during my career, is that, we, as a society, the United States has risen to a level of affluency that's unparalleled anywhere else in the world, and we could. At this stage, we put a high value on what you might refer to as pristineness, okay? Leaving things the way they are. There's a big benefit there we get from no longer mining with the strip mines, the deforestation, overfishing, and so on and so forth. Now we rely on third world countries to provide us with those goods and services. And the fact that, okay, we observe the Amazon basin being destroyed in the name of, providing more beef, most of which is probably exported. It just kind of highlights this idea that we have a tremendous debt to pay to these countries that are far behind us in terms of their affluence, their wherewithal, their economies, and so on. And that if we want to see the change that's necessary on a global level, we've got to be prepared to provide the support to these other countries that we've exploited for so long for their goods and services that keep us in this state of affluence we're used to. We owe them a big debt of gratitude, or we have to recognize that they are just trying to do what we already have gone through, and it's going to wreak havoc in terms of climate change. But how can we avoid that? How can we stop that? What would be fair in this case?
Right. Yeah. Oh, we have a lot to talk about. But let's take one more question or observation from Jasmine, and then we'll move along to the last part.
Okay. I was going to say to try and put a positive spin on Sam's point is that there is a big part of climate change that is a choice on our part to continue consuming, to value consumption, to value greed, and to continue living in a society where that is the norm. And that the hope is with groups like this, with discussions like this, that we can change that narrative, that we have the power, if there are enough people who are listening, to change that tide. And that if we are the ones who are consuming, and our culture is the one that is pushing that narrative of this is what is power, this is what is to be desired, each of us can be part of the conversation to change that narrative, that we don't need to consume that much. We don't need to eat beef every single day. We don't need to have a brand new wardrobe every year. We don't need to have a brand new car every year. We can stop consuming at that level, and we can be part of a change in how we all see how we interact with our environment, and be a model for other countries who maybe don't have the economic ability to say, no, today I'm just not going to chop down the Amazon because I find that morally repugnant. Well, if they don't feed their families. So we are the people who can make those decisions that is not how we want to live our lives anymore. So we do have some power in that, each of us as individuals. Yes, it will take more than each of us individually to make that change, but that's something that we can all commit to.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jasmine. I'm going to post another question, the last question, it's a question, to consider. From the letter of the future in the interlude, is the expression of public grief over creation's demise important for people of faith? Will this expose the denial that has held many political leaders captive for so many decades? Can you recall examples of social change that were prompted by public expressions of grief? And my co-facilitator in Sacred Ground will have some ideas, I know that. So, thoughts?
Diane, this is Jen. I just wanted to let you know that John Pick had his hand up just a minute ago. I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, I didn't see John. Are you good?
Yeah, I think so. It was sort of tailing off the last. It was off of the last comment before we went into this area. So
okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We will choose you. We will choose you next time. And your hand is up.
It's okay.
We need 3 hours for this discussion. Anyway, okay.
I thought that letter was shocking and appropriately so.
Yes.
To actually imagine you know, that many years down the road into the future, and what it very well may be if we don't, as a world, as a globe, take action. I, for one, am full of hope. I was profoundly depressed for 4 years. And the first thing that happened on day one of a new administration is to try to undo as much of the damage that could be done on that very first day, and keep on going. The social change, of course, Black Lives Matter, grief and anger, and all the people getting out there marching, all of us getting out there in spite of COVID for change. It worked. It's working. It is little by little working. So anyway.
Thanks. Hope is so important. And that's one gift.
I just feel so much more hopeful now.
Yeah. Martha.
Hi, I just want to add about what Kim was just saying. Since Black Lives Matter, there has been a change for more opening from the people. People are more open to hear about not just social justice issues, but about the environment, about something that is not right. And along with that, the journalists and also the filmmakers have also has been a shift towards producing more documentaries that are more responsible, educating, exposing problems. I see more articles about issues that before we were not hearing about it. Just recently, I heard about Costco. In the past, we never would have heard about anything bad about Costco and the way they treat the chickens, the way they grow the chickens. And we're talking about millions of chickens and how they mistreat them, and how it's really a disgusting situation, how they live and how cruel it is. And so that, I think that's is a way we're heading in the right direction. It's a good thing.
Absolutely. And just one more thing before we move along. It's people like you, and it's returning to our faith communities and raising these concerns, inviting people to have small groups where you can really talk, where you can really have some dialogue going. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and even though it's brief, it's valuable too, I think. So we don't have too much time. I had some suggestions for action because that's in my DNA. So I will send those to everyone along with a brief survey just to find out how things are going for you. So our next facilitators will have some ideas on, how to run their groups. And it will also include some upcoming events, climate change and creation care events that you might be interested in. So our next meeting is Wednesday next, and it will be at 7 o'clock again. Unfortunately, we don't have more time, but we will have more space, if that makes any sense. Deborah Sellies from St. Margaret's in Palm Desert. Am I right, Deborah? Okay, a wonderful place. We'll facilitate the next week's session, including chapters 3 and 4. I liked the provocative nature. Phil questioned me about this, and that's okay. Of the chapter 3, which starts, what's church for? I like that. So keep that in mind. I want to thank Phil for co-facilitating with me today, because he's always a great support and a wonderful person to work with. And I would like to put the closing prayer in the chat. Phil, am I forgetting anything? Let me know.
I don't think so.
Okay. I feel like.
Oh, yeah, there's a feedback. So there's something about feedback, right?
Right, and I mentioned that I will be sending an email to folks.
Okay.
And for some reason I can't get the prayer. Okay, here we go. And I will put this. And would someone like to volunteer to say the prayer, and then we will read it along with you. And there's the prayer. Jasmine, please read away.
May all I say and all I think be in harmony with thee, God within me, God beyond me, maker of the trees.
Amen.